Taiwan-India at 30, Charting a New Arc of Cooperation。那这本报告书呢，我们也邀请了我们的合作伙伴机构观察家研究基金会，在新德里的这个重要的外交政策智库一起来合作，然后是由台亚基金会的萧新煌董事长、观察家以及观察家基金会的 Sami Sarang 会长两位带领着研究的团队一起来编辑这本报告书。那这本报告书一共有19章，那我想作为一个政策报告跟评估来说，19章的篇幅是很大，但是我们用很精要的文字针对内容进行说明。这19章里面呢，横跨了这个各种领域，包含这个国际上的战略上的伙伴关系，以及这个从新南向政策到新南向政策 Plus 里面台印关系可以做什么事，然后还有经济的合作。我们都知道台印之间在经济上其实过去经贸的成长非常的迅速，在新南向政策的这几年成长超过 60%， 所以它其实是有很惊人的成果。然后加上穆迪总理又有几个政策的这个宣示，传达他希望争取台湾的半导体供应链合作，还有包括像智慧车相关产业合作的这样子的一个动力，也强化了台湾跟印度的关系。除此之外，除了经贸、半导体跟这个合作、科学，然后数位，然后甚至是安全，还有这个国会的交流，以及这个公共卫生、健康，还有 NGO、教育等等，这一些都是这本报告书里面的特色，就不像是传统的学术研究的成果，就关注在比如说社会啊、经济啊、政治比较传统的领域。我们除了那些之外，我们还有更多、更细节、更具体的这个证据，证明台湾跟印度携手同进了30年。那我要跟大家讲的另外一个重点就是，除了这些主题之外，第19章是政策的建议。这个政策的建议呢，是基于我们的作者群还有相关研究的成果，汇整出政策的方向，然后也提出具体的建议，作为智库向政府倡议的一些具体的做法，希望台湾跟印度的政府可以认真的去思考，在下一个30年，台湾跟印度可以创造什么样子的共同价值，捍卫怎么样的共同利益，以及怎么样的一起克服共同的挑战。好，我想这是我的部分，就是跟大家简报这个报告书的这个背景。那我接下来就请这个我们的这个报告书很重要的推手胡莎娜博士来为我们再进一步的说明。Sana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alan. Alan has already explained what the report is all about in Mandarin. So before talking about the report, I would like to explain and tell you more about how the India program we started at TAF and what we have done till now. So TAF is the first Taiwanese think tank that systematically began a program on India. And we have been able to do a lot on India. That's the very first time that Taiwan, of course, it was primarily because of the initiation of the new southbound policy, but we were able to initiate serious discussion about India-Taiwan relationships, at least since 2020-21. Of course, the geopolitical climate did help us and did help the trajectory of our own research program. So TAF is the first ever think tank, Taiwanese think tank, to have a track 1.5 dialogue that is consistent. And this year we are going to have the third round of dialogue in Mumbai. And of course, the One China policy, the China factor has always been there, but despite that, we have been able to get officials from both sides, and we have been able to have constructive discussion, and we have got a lot of policy recommendations on Taiwan-India relationship. And of course, the relationship that you see today is very different from what it was 5 to 6 years ago. And of course, the credit goes to the government, but the credit also goes to the think tank. And of course, a lot of Indian think tanks, a lot of Taiwanese think tanks have been working on advancing this relationship. But I have to really give credit to Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation. I'm not saying it because I work with Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation. I also work with Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation because of its determination to focus on the countries which were not really traditionally on Taiwanese radar. And I do believe that the importance of New Southbound policy is something that we need to keep talking about. Because earlier the relationship about external relations of Taiwan were primarily about the US and Europe. But now, imagine we are sitting in downtown Taipei and we are talking about India, from vice president to National Security Council officers to legislature. Everyone had this one thing to say, that we have to advance relationship with India, and I think that's a huge progress. So one of the major objectives why we focus on India, because I think a few years ago we at TAF realized that Taiwan is understood and studied through the China lens. So this is what we started doing, that we started telling Taiwan, the story of Taiwan external relation through the Taiwanese lens, and also Indian lens. So in fact, we have done 3 reports on India-Taiwan. That's the first joint report that we have done with an Indian think tank. We have done a report on Australia-Taiwan relations, and we have done a report on Taiwan-Southeast Asia relations. And if you look at the content of the report, of course, we have to have a China chapter, but it's just one chapter. Most of the chapters are about Taiwan's relationship, different aspects of its relationship. Now, coming to this report, so this is the first report with an Indian think tank that is edited by ORF President Samir Saran and Professor Michael Xiao. We have included officials, serving legislators, and think tank community, scholars, university professors, and it covers all the aspects from a strategic relationship, China factor, to people-to-people ties. So I think this is your one-stop report for anything India-Taiwan relations, and I'm very proud today. TAF has completed 7 years, and I have completed 4.5 years at TAF. But I am so proud that I'm a part of Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, and I'm even prouder that we are able to establish such connections with a country like India that is generally regarded as a difficult country, but we have been able to penetrate into the think tank community. We have been able to convince the officials to talk about India-Taiwan relations. So I think this is where the role of think tanks come. Alan always say that we are not just a think tank, we are also a do tank. And I think with the report on India-Taiwan relationship, with the track 1.5 dialogue, and with a lot of other things which I have forgotten, we do so much that it's just difficult to talk about everything right now. But we have been able to do a lot in India-Taiwan relations, and I am 100% sure that in times to come, we would play an even greater role to strengthen ties between India and Taiwan. So please read the report, and there are a lot of policy recommendations on India-Taiwan relations, and please do share the feedback with us. Thank you so much.
Dr. Michael Xiao, Dr. Alan from TAF, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute honor to join you today to celebrate the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation's 7th anniversary and to commemorate 3 decades of India-Taiwan partnership. As he rightly said, it's not easy to build this 30 years of relationship. On behalf of India-Taipei Association, I extend my heartfelt congratulations to TAEF. This year, as we mark the 30 years of the establishment of India-Taipei Association in Taipei and the Taipei Economic and Cultural Center in New Delhi, it is a moment of both celebration and calibration. It is time to reflect on the path that we have walked and to chart the contours of the road ahead. On this, I thank TAF and ORF on the report that was just launched, the Taiwan-India at 30, charting a new arc of cooperation. The report has covered most of the topics that is already existing and the potential way forward. Over the last 3 decades, India and Taiwan have built a relationship anchored in shared democratic values, economic complementarities, and cultural affinities. Our partnership today is not confined to one domain. India's investor-friendly policies and combined with Taiwan's manufacturing prowess have attracted over 260 Taiwanese companies to the Indian market. From mobile phones to microchips, they are contributing to India's growth story and reimagining global supply chains. As Taiwan seeks to diversify supply chains, it finds in India an ideal partner, a vast and rapidly growing market powered by a youthful workforce and technological ambition. Our complementarities have become clearer. Taiwan's strength in high-end hardware meets India's software and service advantage. The $11 billion semiconductor facility in Dholera, Gujarat, between Tata and PSMC marks the beginning of what we believe will be a deeper, technology-driven economic partnership between India and Taiwan. Equally important is our expanding canvas of academic and scientific cooperation. Joint initiatives such as the Indo-Taiwan Joint Research Center on AI and Machine Learning at IIT Rupar and our bilateral programs of cooperation in science and technology have opened new frontiers of cooperation. It is clear that India and Taiwan are not just trading partners, but co-creators of innovation and prosperity for the future. Over 5,000 Indians live in Taiwan, of which 3,000 of them are students. Taiwan's opening of 39 Mandarin language centers in India is not just cultural outreach, but investment by Taiwan in long-term mutual understanding. With over 50 MOUs signed between universities in India and academic institutes in Taiwan, we are confident that the future will be marked by deeper collaboration and greater knowledge exchange, bridging the gap between our societies. No meaningful partnership in today's complex world has evolved without new ideas, and this is where think tanks play a pivotal role. Institutions like TAF and ORF have been instrumental in fostering mutual understanding, dialogue, and strategic cooperation. They have ensured that our partnership is not episodic, but enduring. The speakers in the last session spoke about the importance of India-Taiwan relations. I was happy to hear that, and so this makes it more important for us to also focus on the challenges that constrain this partnership to realize its full potential. With our economic and institutional links, these are deepening, mutual understanding between our societies remain limited. There is still a relatively low level of public awareness among business communities, students, and civil societies about the opportunities and strengths that we offer each other. And in this vacuum, misinformation and disinformation find room to distort perceptions. This is where think tanks and research institutions must step forward to function not only as dialogue facilitators, but also as solution creators. We need new ideas that are innovative, scalable, and actionable on how to overcome information gaps and how to build meaningful connections. In a rapidly evolving geopolitical and geoeconomic context, India and Taiwan can be partners cooperating on high-end technology innovation, semiconductors and supply chain resilience, digital governance and cybersecurity, clean energy and sustainable infrastructure, to talent and academic linkages, and much more. We need to invest in shared capacity. I hope today's conversation guides us towards a path of enduring India-Taiwan relations for the decades to come.
Hello friends, it gives me great pleasure to see the report on 3 decades of Taiwan-India engagement being released today. It is a testament, of course, to the fantastic cooperation between Taiwan and India as it has been emerging over the last few years. But it is also a token of tribute to the relationship that Observer Research Foundation has forged with the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation. We have been working closely for the last several years to ensure that scholars, policymakers, the community of people who are interested in this relationship, academics, think tankers, work together, come together to reflect upon and to chart a way forward for this very important bilateral relationship in the Indo-Pacific. It is a relationship that is growing despite diplomatic challenges and remains firmly anchored in the people-to-people goodwill that animates this and that is being acknowledged increasingly on both sides. Congratulations to Taipei Economic and Cultural Center, as well as to the India-Taiwan Association for such a wonderful job over the last 3 decades. And congratulations also to all the authors who invested their efforts in making this report a success. Thank you very much.
I'm particularly fond of the phrase that Dr. Sana Hashmi just mentioned. The Taiwan-India S30, this report is the one-stop report that you can explore more about the real face of bilateral tie between Taiwan and India. And based on this good foundation, we are delighted today to invite 4 good speakers to address Taiwan-India relation for the past 3 decades and to provide a prospect for the future vision. And so let me first introduce our 3 speakers. So on my left-hand side is Dr. Sana Hashmi, the doctoral fellow of Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation. Please join me to welcome our speakers. The next one is Mr. Nikhil, the Vice President of Micron Technology, based in Taiwan. And last but not least, Dr. Roger Liu Qifeng, who is the Assistant Professor of National Sun Yat-sen University, but he used to work in India to serve as Director for Faculty of Social Science at Flem University. So he is, I think, the only one professor, Taiwanese professor teaching in India leading university. Welcome, Dr. Liu. Well, it's quite challenging to me that within the 60 minutes in this session, we need to evaluate the past and also to predict what we are going to do in the next 30 years. So it's difficult for us to control the time, to manage the time, but I will try my best to narrow down to 2 questions that I'm going to raise to address to each of our speakers, so that you can focus on these questions based on your expertise and also your insight. And then we can have more in-depth discussion later. So the first question, I think echoing to the previous session that we discussed, the transformation of Taiwan's Indo-Pacific presence in terms of the priority pillar or issue of this Indo-Pacific policy or strategy. There are 4 specific issue or pillar. Number 1 is security resilience chain. Number 2 is democratic value chain. Number 3 is related to reliable supply chain, not necessarily focused on semiconductor chips. Number 4 is mutual help and a friendship chain. So with these 4 chains as the critical feature of Taiwan's presence and Taiwan's ongoing designing of the Indo-Pacific strategy, what will be your insight that your institution, your organization, or the Taiwan-India relation can be embedded in this framing of the Indo-Pacific strategy? So from your perspective, what kind of the role or the take that your organization can contribute or can make to these 4 pillars of Taiwan's Indo-Pacific strategy in terms of Taiwan-India partnership? That's the first question that I want to learn from you. And the second question will be related to the future scenario. We all learn from this report that there are a variety of issues that Taiwan has already nourished the strong tie with India in terms of trade, investment, education, soft power, digital defense, or even the awareness of common security challenges. Could you enlighten us what will be, in terms of your expertise, what will be the priority issue and concrete mechanism of Taiwan-India partnership for enabling the new southbound policy plus or Indo-Pacific strategy. So what kind of the issue come up in your mind that the Taiwan-Indian partnership can facilitate the implementation of the new southbound policy plus or the Indo-Pacific strategy? So with these two questions, I think I would like to learn from you and to have more discussion around the floor later as well. So may I invite Sana to speak first. Floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I don't think I'd be the best person to answer the first question because I think you're a better person to answer that question, that what my organization can do. And then you all are sitting here and you know what my organization is doing on India-Taiwan relations. We have NGO corridor, and I don't want to repeat all those points that have been made before. But I think I'd focus on your second question more. I think first we need to really establish that this 30 years of ITA and TCC is not a small development by any measure. And this is the very reason that why we need to celebrate it and why we need to reflect on the past and what we are doing in the present and what is going to happen and what are the prospects of this relationship. There is hardly any doubt about India and Taiwan being important to each other. And I always say that this is a defining partnership of the Indo-Pacific region. And we need to work towards that. We really need to see how these two countries could come together. A lot has been achieved in the past 5 to 6 years, but I don't think we just need to be satisfied with it. A lot needs to be achieved in times to come. So why do I call this one of the most important relationships in the Indo-Pacific region? As in, I think that the answer we got in the previous session and from government officials that, of course, both Taiwan and India are reliable partners to each other. There is consistency. And also there is one myth that I want to bust. A lot of people are asking me this question that now the India-US relationship are kind of deteriorating. There is this disruption in the relationship. So what is going to happen to India's approach to Taiwan? So I really want to clarify this because a lot of people see Taiwan through the US lens. India wasn't engaging Taiwan because of the US or because US asked India to do it. India has its own interest in Taiwan. Perhaps in terms of security, maybe, but not in terms of economics and technology. So I don't think that Taiwan's importance is going to go down anytime soon, not for India. And it was not because of the US that Prime Minister Modi was very open about Taiwan, and our foreign minister was calling Taiwan a friend even in London and every place. So there is a lot of potential in the relationship, of course, in the economic sector, in the technology sector, but also in the security sector. But of course, there are some constraints. I think I don't have a lot of time, so I would just focus on the policy recommendations here because we all know what has been done in the relationship in the past 30 years. There has been a lot of interaction. There has been a number of agreements that have been signed in the field of economics, in the field of technology and culture. These are the main mandate of the unofficial relationship. And you might have heard me saying it a lot of time, but I think I have to keep saying it until it becomes a reality, at least again. There is no future of this relationship if we do not have a direct connectivity. And since 2020, I just don't find it normal that we have to travel for 13, 14 hours to reach New Delhi from Taipei. It's just the idea that it's not profitable. This is something that we have to move beyond this. There needs to be a direct flight, at least between New Delhi and Taipei. Then in terms of economic relationship, there's a lot of progress. The trade figures have reached a milestone of $10 billion. Of course, it's a huge figure, but when it comes to India and Taiwan, it is nothing. So we definitely need to do more. There needs to be more investment from Taiwan to India. But economics is the only field where there is direct government-to-government interaction. Here we need to focus on other aspects as well. We need to have government-to-government interaction, or at least at the director general level, senior official level, at least in the areas such as disinformation, cyber, and maritime. And then my friend from Ocean Affairs Council is sitting, and Ocean Affairs Council has been very proactive with India. We just attended this conference, annual symposium by Ocean Affairs Council. There were at least 4 or 5 speakers from India. So it's just not that MOFA is focusing on India, MOE is focusing on India. Ocean Affairs Council and a lot of other ministries and departments in Taiwan are also focusing on India. Then I don't think we have to be too cautious when it comes to China. We have to resume the Parliamentary Friendship Association. That began in 2016, that was kind of resumed in 2020, but then we don't know what's happening with that. So we do need more parliamentary visit, we do need more parliamentary interaction. It is not government level, the parliamentarians are the representative of the people. And we can't really, and we cannot let China dictate the terms of the engagement, not for India and not for Taiwan. Then I do believe that we need to have a direct government-to-government interaction at some level, or at least think tank-to-think tank interaction in the maritime affair. This is happening, but we need more. So I think what we need to do, as you ask, what is the prospect of the relationship? We need to minimize distraction. We have to maximize the convergent interest. China has been an enabler, but I think US, China, they're going to be there. But we need to dehyphenate not just from China, but also from the US. And I think this is where the new southbound policy plus comes into play. That was the very first time in the history of Taiwan that there was a policy framework to primarily focus on countries such as India. So perhaps, one of the good things about that India was a priority country even within the new southbound policy. So now with new southbound policy plus, I think what could be further done is, apart from making it a priority country, we should also focus on major areas of cooperation, be it connectivity, be it cyber cooperation, disinformation, and maritime affair. I think these are some of the most important areas where we need to have more interaction and more engagement between India and Taiwan. But I think, of course, I am an advocate of India-Taiwan relations, and I do want this relationship to reach its optimum level. But I do know that there are constraints, and we need to keep those constraints and limitations in mind, and perhaps somewhere we have to manage our expectations. But I think the idea and our approach should be that we have to keep moving, because there was a lot of momentum that was built in the past 5 years. And if we don't keep working on the same path, if not doing more, but at least we have to keep doing what has been done. Because if we don't do it, the momentum, the progress that has been achieved in the past years would be lost. So I think the idea is perhaps just to keep moving and keep maintaining what we have been able to achieve, because this has a lot of potential, and it's just not about China, it's not about invasion, it's about maintaining peace and stability in the region, it's about cooperation among like-minded countries, and there's no doubt that India and Taiwan are like-minded countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Sana, for identifying some key issue according to echo the second question. I totally agree that the direct flight is in urgent need. If we want to facilitate the multifaceted partnership, especially in terms of education, young leader, NGO, labor, we strongly need the direct flight. And the second issue that Sana identified is she mentioned about the Ocean Affairs Council. This year, the Ocean Affairs Council organized the International Ocean Forum. India has been appearing on the radar of Ocean Affairs Council. And I would say that the new southbound policy did bring India and other priority countries into the agenda of the key ministry of Taiwan's administrative body. We do see the possibility that maybe in the near future, the Ministry of Agriculture may consider to partner with India's counterpart for the smart agriculture or cooperation, and also other local farmer training capacity building program. And with the wider understanding of India as well as other priority countries in our among our various ministry, and that can really materialize a true friendship and also a strong partnership through the government to government or quasi G2G relationship. I think Sana's insight has enlightened us in this direction. Next, I would like to invite Nikhil.
Thank you. And I fully agree with the direct connectivity flight. It's too painful to get around between Taiwan and India these days. And thanks, Sana, for taking the second question, because I didn't have much to add on the second one, but I certainly have some inputs on the first one. You know, as I was thinking about if we were having this session 30 years ago, back in '95, how different would it be? And I think some of it would have been pretty much similar, because going back to '95, '96 timeframe, Taiwan was having the Taiwan Strait crisis in the '95, '96 timeframe. So China security would have been a common topic. India had its own challenges, some with security or with the neighbors, but also India was recovering from a financial crisis situation in the early '90s. So there were forces and there were things that were holding the countries back. But in the midst of it, there was another revolution happening on a global stage. And that was, in the technology stage, the rise of internet. And as internet rose, if we look ahead in the next 30 years, that's what sparked the software and IT service industry. And if you look at the same thing happened with Taiwan, but Taiwan capitalized on its manufacturing strength in semiconductor, and became a giant in advanced technology and semiconductor. As we stand today, we have similar two forces which are acting against each other. We have a force of, de-risking, whether it's trade wars, whether it's tariffs, whether it's just actual wars. So that's one force, and a lot of discussion around that, of resiliency. But there is also a force of taking risks and driving innovation. And what was internet 30 years ago, it's artificial intelligence that's going to take shape for the next 30 years. And I know, the previous panel and everyone, and it's very important to focus on de-risking and resiliency. But if we miss the boat on talking about the next future that AI is going to create, what made both countries successful in the last 30 years is not necessarily what's going to make both countries successful in the next 30. So a lot has been written and talked about how India has software strength and Taiwan has hardware strength, and certainly these are complementary strengths that both countries need to capitalize on. But what we are talking about, the future, the supply chain for the future, and one of the things you talked about out of the four was supply chain. The supply chain of the past, whether it was PCs and phones and laptops, that has been structured, and we know where it's been structured, and it's difficult to move that supply chain. But the supply chain of the future devices, the future intelligent hardware, drones, autonomous vehicles, robots, that hasn't taken shape yet. And this is an opportunity to form that supply chain that's going to coexist with human beings. The devices of tomorrow are not going to be the devices of today. The security that's going to be needed, the trusted supply chain that's going to be needed, the software and algorithms that are going to be behind it, it's going to define humanity. So it's very important that the supply chain for the future is not just built upon cost and capability, but also built upon shared values and trusted supply chains. So I don't have, Alan, much to talk about security and democracy, but I think this is a great opportunity for both India and Taiwan to capitalize and define that supply chain, a trusted supply chain for the devices of the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I do believe that Taiwan and India will join hands to navigate the crisis of global supply chain as well as the uncertainty of the current geopolitics crisis, and also the last session, the China factor. And last but not the least, let us invite Dr. Roger Liu to give us your thoughts and recommendation. Roger, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, to speak in as the last speaker, I think the best part has been covered by the previous panelist. So I will try my best to answer your two questions and within the framework that I just come up with. So we were talking about New South Wales policy years before, but we're still talking about New South Wales policy now. Although now we have a new government, and it seems that we have some kind of different rhetoric regarding the policy platform that we are going to have for different countries and different areas. However, I think they are still the core is still the same. Now we are talking about the comprehensive diplomacies that is comprised of three parts. The first is the economic and trade diplomacy. The second one is the alliance diplomacy. The third one is the value-based diplomacy. Well, these are important, and although we don't read any New South Wales policy here, but if we apply these three pillars of what is called the new diplomacy platform on the Indian-Taiwan relations, we will find that actually that's still very important for us to understand Taiwan and India through the ideas of New South Wales policy. The first one is value-based diplomacy. I'm saying that because I spent 8 years in India approaching different people. I participate in different areas of collaboration, fighting along with TAEF and other think tanks in Taiwan, TECC in India, and other scholars. So I would like to share my 2 cents of mine based on my 8 years of experience spending covering dealing with different people. Well, the first one, value-based diplomacy among India and Taiwan. It can be a hard part because we share the same value of democracy, that's right? However, we share a lot of different values as well. For example, the way that we treat US from the Taiwanese and the Indians are different. For Taiwanese, we're highly reliant on the US. We adore the US values and everything. However, in India, influenced by non-aligned movement and strategic alignment, actually India is more independent than ours, right? So how are we going to understand each other? Actually, when the US have imposed tariff wars on different countries, you can see that Taiwan and India adopted totally different ways to deal with that. You can argue that that's because we have different economic structure. However, we have different views on the United States, and that's something that we have to understand each other, right? The second thing is the alliance diplomacy. Some panelists mentioned about this, like alliance is very important, but whose alliance? For India, Iran, Russia, these are not enemies. All right, since they are not following the U.S. lens or perspectives to see everything happening around the world, they have different calculations and understandings of national interest. And we, as Taiwanese, we have different ones. So this is something that we have to work with each other and understand each other. And when it comes to economic and trade, it seems to be very straightforward and more, because it comes with numbers, revenues, and everything, it should be easier, right? But however, when we are all facing the tariff challenge imposed by the new, he's not new, the second term of the Donald Trump administration, Taiwan and India has to work together because we have to examine all the assumed conditions that we have work upon, that bring us all together as trade partners. Now everything has been changed. The China Plus One is still that we have to reevaluate the China Plus One structure over there. Well, the Taiwanese companies go to India because they want to have another assembling basis. They can export their products to markets like the United States mainly, right? But now since the US has imposed tariffs on even higher rate on India than in China, so how are we going to deal with that? That's very important. We have to think about this in a new way, right? We have to think about the semiconductors and technology, science and technology transfers totally in a new way. And that will require us to sit down, Taiwanese and Indian experts together again to find some way out. Well, actually, before I come here, I made a table for the report that we have made. So I would like to share a little bit about that. Well, this report is a brilliant thing because, well, it gathered all the experts from different areas in India and Taiwan all together, covering different domains. And all these domains are very important. And after 30 years, we see the relationship between Taiwan and India have grown from 0 to now we have a lot of fruitful achievements that we can boast of. For example, in 1995, we just set up one office of each other in Taipei and New Delhi. Now we have 3 representative offices and in Mumbai, Delhi, and Chennai. And we grow a lot in the bilateral trade between the 2 countries. And we help India to establish the first fab for commercial use in Dorela, India. And now we have, after we sign a science and technology agreement in 2007, there are now 145 projects being leased, and we have established different platforms covering different things. And now the 2 countries start to work on cybersecurity, education and talent. Now we have 39 language Taiwan study center in India on different campuses of the universities of India. And now we are working also on the medical and issues and the human exchange issues as well. And I have to go back to the direct flight as well. I hope that it will be resumed soon. Right? So 30 years we have achieved a lot, and I think this is great. Well, this has made an importance in history. However, while we are facing the new challenges, and this challenge is actually a black swan from our ally. So how India and Taiwan can work together to deal with that in a practical and a reasonable way, I think this is something that we have to continue. Thank you.
Thank you. The conversion of this conversation, I think there are 2 interesting issues emerging. Number one is the U.S. factor. So usually we did encounter the conversation regarding the China factor in any regional workshop, conference, or summit. But so far in this session, we particularly encounter the U.S. factor as something very difficult to manage. So this is the first common issue. How does Taiwan or India manage the U.S. factor, and how can both Taiwan and India, so the first one is Taiwan or India, and the second is Taiwan and India can manage the U.S. factor? I think this is something that later I would like to further ask some of your opinion. And the second issue that, as Roger just mentioned, the China Plus strategy that prevailed during the past 1 or 2 decades. And as Taiwan is now seriously considering to materialize, to advocate and materialize the Indo-Pacific strategy, from our perspective at Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, we propose that Taiwan's Indo-Pacific strategy should highlight the Taiwan Plus strategy. It's not the Taiwan Plus. It's a Taiwan Plus strategy and also the plus Taiwan strategy. That means if you consider Taiwan as a partner, so echoing those 14 variety of this Indo-Pacific strategy should be inclusive of Taiwan's presence, contribution, or the component as their materialization of their Indo-Pacific strategy. So these are the two things that I learned from our conversation just now. So with this in mind, I would like to ask our three distinguished speakers for your recommendation and insight how Taiwan plus India can jointly manage the existing and also the forthcoming U.S. factor that hinder the global geopolitics and also the Indo-Pacific dynamics. So, yeah, please.
Thank you for asking this question. I think this is such an important question, and everyone is asking this question. I think the tariff talks are overshadowing the Indo-Pacific strategy for now. It was revived under Donald Trump 1.0. Quad was revived under, I think he was the catalyst for it. But now under Trump 2.0 administration, we do not really see any strong emphasis on the Indo-Pacific. And I think, especially from Taiwan's perspective, that is a little concerning. I don't think that other countries' relationship with Taiwan are dependent on their relationship with the US. So I think that way I would see Taiwan-India relationship being safe. But if we talk about China here, we have to have US in the region. And you have to have US strong presence and strong willingness to just not to defend Taiwan, but also to convince other countries in the region that Taiwan is your all concern as well. Because if you talk to countries such as perhaps Australia and India, they'd be like, we don't have a strong role to play here. This is not our concern as of now. So I think I was very optimistic about these countries becoming a part of the process when it comes to defending Taiwan. But now we don't even see any mention of Indo-Pacific in the US statements by Donald Trump. And also his willingness to engage China is something, I feel that Taiwan would be a collateral damage in that. So I don't think that we need to, it has to come from the US. So how do we manage the US factor, as in countries are dealing with their own issues with China? And in fact, Filipino president he's just leaving India today, and he was very articulated. He was very candid about his approach towards China, India, US, as well as Taiwan. In fact, in India, in one of the interviews, he said that when it comes to defending Taiwan, it's not that we'd be sitting on the margins, because it's about our geography and we have to defend our own territory. So imagine this is coming from the Philippines. But I don't really see any direct role of India playing in the Taiwan contingency in times to come. And I feel that if US is not going to step up, we might not even see India doing anything beyond economics, technology. So I think US has to step up. And I think US tariff war and US accusing of India is right now misplaced. Even when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, it's not India that could resolve the issue. It's China that could actually do something. China has much more influence than India. So I feel that perhaps Taiwan has to lobby more with the US right now and see how the Indo-Pacific focus could be brought back. And we need countries such as Japan. And in Katagalan Forum, we were there and there was a Japanese speaker. He did focus on the importance of India in maintaining regional peace and stability. But we just see this coming from Japan. We just perhaps see this coming from Australia. But we also saw Australian Prime Minister was in China for their own economic interest. So I think US is still considered the security guarantor of the region, but if it doesn't step up, countries will just going to be focusing on their own interest and perhaps just reaching out to China to see if they could maximize their outreach so that the security concerns could be managed. So I feel that it's primarily on the US. Other countries cannot really do much. But what could Taiwan and India do is to, as I said in my remarks as well, we have to dehyphenate. And if not security right now, what we could do is to advance relationship in other aspects of the relationship. And I always say, when it comes to Southeast Asian countries, when it comes to India, new southbound policy countries, these countries are not going to step up, the stakes are not going to be higher if the economic relationship are not at that level. So we also have to see, Roger talked about seeing interest from countries' lenses. So if these countries do not have interest beyond economics, beyond diaspora, they would be less inclined to talk and defend Taiwan. So I do feel that it has to start from economics, and the stakes in the relationship have to be raised.
Okay, so I think there are two aspects. One is of geopolitics, the other is of trade and technology collaboration. And to me personally, those two things can coexist with differences, as Roger pointed out, some differences in values, some differences in beliefs and policies. We are talking about China and Taiwan, much differences in values, much differences in political policies. Yet, if you look at the trade, it's the largest trading partner. We talked about US and China, much differences in political values and policies, yet one of the top 5, if not the top 3 trading partners. India and China, similar. So to me, I think, and towards your end, Sana, you pointed out the same thing, there is security, national security and economic security. And at least on the economic security front, while some differences might exist, it's a huge opportunity for Taiwan and India to collaborate together. India on the verge to becoming the third largest GDP, a lot of consumption based out of there. And yet Taiwan's trade with India is not even in the top 10 of trade. So a lot has been done, a lot of collaboration has been done, but I think there is a lot more opportunity for the two countries to come together and establish partnership on the economic front while the other policies find its way.
Well, I would like to first use example of the PSMC Tata fab that has been being built now, scheduled to be put into work in the year of 2027. If the U.S. is no longer the biggest market, or the U.S. actually has been trying to reorient its market for now, what should India and Taiwan do if we use this as example? I checked some statistics before coming here. It seems that 60% of the IC products goes to the U.S. market from India, right? And followed by the single digit from the number 2, number 3, and number 4 markets. So speaking of the U.S., it's hard to replace. However, for when India and Taiwan work together, I think Taiwan can play the role of explorer of the markets outside of India, while India can try hard to expand its market domestically. Well, because the first purpose of establishing the PSMC Tata actually is for domestic use, for the car use chips. And we can think how to fit Taiwan better in the Indian supply chains, how the Taiwanese know-hows and factories of different sizes, or manufacturers of different sizes from the ICT field can benefit Taiwan and India at the same time. So this is something that we have to think about. And if we want to achieve that, intergovernmental dialogue is very important. However, this is the thing that has been avoided because people don't want to get into political hassles for now, especially from the Indian side. However, I think it's important for us to establish the official channel of talks between the two governments or nations. And the second thing is that institutions are important, especially in this chaotic world that has been changed by black swans or orange swans, how you call it. However, we have to stick to our path, that we make sure that we have something that we can follow. And Indians are very good at that by establishing multilateral institutions. And I think Taiwan, there are a lot of things that Taiwan can learn from that. And the third thing is that I would like to echo what Sana has mentioned. Dehyphenization is very important. The Indian-Taiwan relationship should not be, we should avoid too many strings attached to it. We should dehyphenate it. We should avoid Taiwan being used as a quid pro quo, or from the Taiwanese side to pit India against China too much. Let's just go back to the fundamentals. Let India-Taiwan be Indian-Taiwan only. Let's focus on what can benefit the two countries all together. And let's start from there so that we can avoid the external externalities being opposed by whichever country that is. Thank you.
Thank you. May I invite a few questions from the floor? Since we have already been satisfied with the insightful conversation led by our three distinguished speakers, I think time is almost there, but I will be happy to collect a few questions if there is any question want to address to specific speakers. So we have one. Please identify yourself and also address your question to specific speakers.
Okay, so my name is Amina Reem. I'm a MOFA Taiwan Fellow from India. So all of you mentioned about the need to dehyphenate India-Taiwan relation from China. But I think China has once been a separating factor in India-Taiwan relation, and now it is a linking factor. To completely dehyphenate India-Taiwan relation from China is a little bit problematic, mainly because of the fact that India shares a border with China, and India also have tensions in the border as well as in the maritime dimensions. So my question is, at pragmatic level, to how extent can India and Taiwan kind of dehyphenate China? Because even we look at after the 2017 Doklam crisis, the Parliamentary Committee on External Affairs also said that we'll be contemplating on all options to balance China, including Taiwan. So Taiwan does come up here whenever there is a tension between India and China. So my question is, maybe Sana Hashmi or Roger, sir, whoever can answer to the question. And one more question I have is regarding the semiconductor thing. Right now, the US has imposed 100% tariff on Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing. And maybe this is a time where India and Taiwan can leverage on the semiconductor cooperation, but the higher import duties also kind of make other countries like Vietnam a viable partnership for Taiwan. So how can India kind of cope up with all these tensions? Thank you.
Is there any further questions from the audience, from the floor? We can accommodate another one. Yes, please.
Hi, Sasha Chabra from INDSR, also a MOFA Taiwan Fellow. I think one thing that's been highlighted by the panelists and also probably every single India-Taiwan related event for the past 5 years has been the issue of the direct flight, right? But we still see no progress on that. And all these sort of other avenues for cooperation sound really, really important, but it's hard to understand how that happens without the direct flight, right? Without just the interchange, the easiness of having people go back and forth. And it seems like a chicken-egg situation, right? Without the direct flight, how do you enhance the cooperation and vice versa? So I'm wondering, what are the practical measures that, people in this room or people at TAF, what can be done to do this? Because we've seen China Airlines, the state-owned airline here, is been very reticent to be used for developing to sort of the non-treaty-allies, let's say. There's 4 times a week direct flight to Palau, but there's no direct flight with the state airline to India or to a lot of the other critical areas, such as perhaps Guam, was a big failure, the development of that flight. So what can be done to sort of make the Taiwanese government understand that airlines have a strategic value in that sense? Thank you.
Thank you. 1 minute. Sana first.
About the question on dehyphenation. So first I would say that Parliamentary Committee is not the government. Government has a total different approach when it comes to Taiwan. And I have been emphasizing that India has not been using Taiwan as a card, unlike other countries. As in, of course, the advancement in the relations started after Galwan clashes, but I think we should see it more of as an opportunity rather than the enabler in the relationship. And also, I think in India, there was a lot of awareness about and curiosity about the approach towards Taiwan's approach towards COVID-19 pandemic. As in, I was here, I saw it firsthand, how the Indian media, how Indian people were like, where is this place that is doing such a remarkable job with the COVID-19 pandemic, and also the factor that Chinese aggression has, both the countries have been subjected to the aggression. So those were main factors, but if you look at the statements from India, if you look at, and if you see the trajectory of the relationship, India has never used Taiwan as a card against China. So I think this is where the dehyphenation starts. And parliamentary committee, as in, I feel that parliaments don't even come and interact with Taiwan. There is no eagerness from the parliamentarians to come and engage. And India is also very domestic-oriented, inward-looking country. So it's just not about Taiwan, it's about a lot of other countries too. So I think we don't really have to take that too seriously. But the Indian government approach has been very much like that we have very serious interest, considerations with respect to Taiwan, and this is what we are focused on. But of course, China factor has been very much there. And you also mentioned that there is the boundary dispute, so we cannot ignore. But then also we have to keep in mind that economics, technology, culture, these are the part of mandate of the unofficial relationship. The ITA, TECC, when they were established to do things like those. So I don't know why we have to really take China's concerns into red lines into consideration. And this has been India's policy that if China is not concerned about our red lines, why do we pay attention to their red lines? So, but Taiwan has nothing to do with that. I can assure you of that. About the direct flight, why is it not happening? It's not happening because the China Airlines doesn't think that it's profitable enough. They still have a slot. And other airlines are still doing feasibility study. They do not see it as a destination where they could see a lot of traffic. But perhaps there is Indigo, there are low-cost airlines from India. They could, but yeah, I think the governments are definitely trying. So I think it's on the airlines. Yeah.
I don't know much about China Airlines. Maybe next time we should invite a representative to come here to share. As for dehyphenation, we don't have to dehyphenate everything, right? We have to dehyphenate the politically highly sensitive ones. There are some things that we have to do under the table, and there's something called One China policy in India, and this is something that we cannot avoid in practical sense, all right? So we don't have to dehyphenate everything, but dehyphenation will bring us some benefit. For example, now Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, is going to at the SCO summit, go to China to visit. So if we attach everything all together, how are we going to view this? The failure of the Taiwanese policy towards India, we should not see in this way. All right? Dehyphenation will enable us to do different things all together without being bothered by something that we should not be bothered. So I think that actually is a convenient tool for us to push things forward. And as for the semiconductor tariffs, maybe later Nikhil will share some of the insider knowledge. But as I know, well, for TSMC it's not a problem because on the surface it's 100%, but well, there's a condition. If you invest in the United States, it's zero. Right, so for TSMC, it's zero, no problem for them. However, for other manufacturers or fabs or other components in the semiconductor chain in Taiwan, there might be a problem, especially for the SME, for the smaller suppliers in this supply chain. For example, ASEs as the largest OSAT providers, are they going to invest in the US as well? Is it profitable? They have to think about that. And another way, well, there are a variety of IC designer firms here in Taiwan. Are they going to shift to the US as well? And they are definitely going to be influenced. So for the whole supply chain, we have to think about that. And if the US has been creating some kind of incentives for the Taiwanese factors or manufacturers to relocate their supply chain from Taiwan to the United States, that actually will be there will be a possible hollowing out effect for the Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturing capacity, and this can be a national security problem for Taiwan in the long term, and this is something that we have to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. So he is correct on the tariff and semiconductor. It is a moving target, right? Maybe by the time we finish this session, something else has changed, right? I think it's in the next 2-3 years, it's a de-risking factor. But beyond that, we just need to look at strategically what makes sense and how to align the supply chains to a broader 20-30 year outlook rather than the current tariff outlook. And that's where, I mean, if you look at today, India's consumption of semiconductors is only less than 5%. And that's why having semiconductor within India for Indian consumption probably doesn't make sense. But with the growth of India, fast forward 5 years later, that consumption becomes about 10-12%. So if 12% of the semiconductors are being consumed within India, then the subsequent electronics manufacturing being there makes sense for local consumption as it grows. So that's why I said, I mean, the long-term strategic directional things we need to take into account while de-risking some of the short-term factors.
Final add up to the friends from INDSR, the direct fly. Yes, national airline will be the best one to carry out. But when it comes to the business interest, they will argue we need to think about the market orientation. So the market, let market decide what is the market. That's the bottom-up process. So if we keep advocating the need, the strong demand for the direct fly from the civil society, from the business industry sector, I think that will facilitate the realization of the direct fly soon. So let's work together. I would like to thank for our 3 distinguished speakers, wonderful remark and very insightful suggestion to re-evaluate the partnership of India and Taiwan for the past 30 years. I do look forward to next 30 years cooperation to navigate the crisis and uncertainty. And with that, I would conclude this session. Please join me to thank all the distinguished speakers' contribution.
再次感谢我们第2场次的与谈人以及主持人杨执行长。Thank you, our panelists. Please return to your seats. You have already taken it in the beginning. 再次感谢我们的与谈人。那我们今天2个场次的论坛就到此结束。最后，我们邀请杨执行长来为我们做个总结。And finally, we would like to invite Dr. Alan Yang for his closing remarks.
好，非常谢谢大家跟我们一起坚持到最后一刻哈。那我想我的结语会很快，因为刚刚我问了太多的问题，占用了大家太多的时间，很抱歉。那我想今天台亚会的7周年哈，是一个对于台亚会来讲是一个虽然不短，但是也不长的一段旅程哈。在肖董事长的带领下，我们的团队每天都慢慢的克服很多的挑战，因为大家都知道这个印太地区的变局非常多，新南向政策也遇到很多国内国际的变局跟挑战。那我想台亚会作为一个这个新南向的政策的智库，然后我们是一个很有行动力的这个 think and do tank。那过去几年来面临到很多的挑战，然后也慢慢的克服。那我们也累积了很多的伙伴跟很多的这个网络。就像肖董事长提到，就是说台亚会的这个擅长的就是促进网络跟建立联盟。那今年10月的这个印太智库的高峰会， 会有很多台亚会过去累积的智库伙伴的这个领袖来访，然后也有一些是新的，愿意跟我们继续，愿意跟我们开创新的一些合作议程的朋友也会前来。那我们也会邀请大家莅临来指导，然后一起来为台湾的印太战略跟发展的方向来寻找一些出路。那最后我想提一个东西，就是今天早上肖董事长的这个欢迎词里面提到3个期许跟2个方向，2个方向就是扩展跟深化。那我先用4个交跟3个不变，还有2个更多来作为是结语。4个交是什么？我们刚刚看到这个印度跟台湾的关系，30年来有很多产业的交易，然后人民跟社会的交流，但是也有更多近年来有更多资讯的交换，然后加强我们彼此的交往，全方面的交往。这4个交是过去30年来的这个成果跟特色。那我也想在未来台印关系就像台湾跟周边新南向伙伴国的关系，绝对不会只有交易，就是不会只是 profit centered， 这个 people centered 的交流跟交往，全面的交往，绝对还是主轴跟这个基础。我想这个是我的这个第一个，就是4-3-2的4。那3呢，3个不变，就是我想今天的这个场合，今天的活动大家也看到了，各位对于台亚会的支持是不变的，那这一点我由衷感谢。然后第2个是诚如今天早上萧美琴副总统提到的新南向政策，政府的这个意志是不变，新南向政策 New Southbound Policy Plus 这个 Plus 的不变，甚至有更多的这个扩大，这个是很重要。然后第3个就台亚会的组织来讲是我们在推动新南向政策跟作为重要的智库的初衷不变。好，这3个不变之下，那我们就有更多的责任了。就像2018年蔡英文总统给我们2个这个任务，我们这几年就是努力的完成。那在未来下一个7年，台亚会自我期许就是我们有2个更多，从新南向政策 Plus 扩展到台湾的印太战略，我们需要有更多的努力。然后第2个更多是我们必须要交更多的朋友，然后为台湾说更多台湾的故事，才能发挥更多的影响力。所以这个是2个更多，其实是更多的更多啦。那我想今天让大家参加一整个下午的活动，有一些可以带回去的 take away， 就是一开始的3个期许跟2个方向，以及结论的时候我提到了这4个交，3个不变，还有2个更多。那以上谢谢大家。